Hey there. Welcome to the Eurostep Podcast Network collab episode. I'm Rohan Katti from the Eurostep. Joining me today is Jordan Treske from the Win in Six podcast. Jordan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Bucks won, but I'm doing well.
The Bucks did win. We are coming to you right after the Bucks win game one against the Chicago Bulls, which is an outcome that we expected. We expected that outcome, yet somehow both of us are still just sort of flabbergasted, flustered, whatever word you want to use after this game one victory. It is a 93-86 final score. And as you could tell by that, it was just an absolute rock fight of a game. The Bucks came out strong. It was a strong first quarter, but the Bulls chipped away. The Bucks chipped away at themselves. The Bulls chipped away at themselves. They both chipped away at each other. I think that's just, I don't know. That's sort of what happened here in this game. But the Bucks, did come out victorious. And before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast platform of choice. We're going to be coming at you with pods after every single game this postseason. So make sure you subscribe. Jordan, what are your initial thoughts after this game?
Bucks playoff basketball. We're back. We are back. Yeah, I was settling in, easing in first quarter. Oh, this is gravy. This is kind of what we thought about when you listen to our series preview pod and kind of general Bucks playoff preview pod. We're looking at this series kind of being a cakewalk. And that might put it mildly, depending on how you view it. The first quarter was great. The rest of it there was some waves. Got a little rocky. We got stranded in low tides, high tides, whatever you want to call it. But the end result was positive. A lot like a lot of games last year. That's what the overwhelming feeling that I had. It was like, okay, these things, you can't be mad at the outcome. You can't be mad with Giannis being Giannis, or certain role players like Brooke and Bobby, Jrue really closing it late in the fourth quarter. There's some big things to take away from, and there was of course a lot of like just befuddling things that just kept happening and just felt like eventually the Bucks are going to win by default, but like that doesn't, you don't necessarily want to talk about a game that way. You want to be like, yeah, they came in there and just like they did it all themselves and just like manhandled the Bulls. And it was like, no, the Bulls were pretty respectable, even though they shot the ball like crap, and the Bucks did too. And it's like, who? That's not what you want to see from your first game, but that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, 34-21 after the first quarter. And the vibes were just immaculate during that first quarter. The Bucks get off to a 9-0 start. Giannis hits a pull-up three, and then Bulls have to call a timeout. It's like, oh my goodness. The tweets were firing. The takes were flying. It was a good time. Started to sort of descend from there. The Bulls actually managed to score a basket, which was impressive for them tonight. And it just kept on going from there. I don't even know where should we start, Jordan? Let's start with Giannis. Yeah. So we don't get lost in that. Giannis was absolutely incredible tonight. He was head and shoulders the best player on the court by far. The only real problem he had was foul trouble. He struggled late. He ended with 5. He picked up his 5th with around 10 or 8 minutes left I think it was 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, which sort of led to him not playing as much a little bit down the stretch. But just pure dominance. He ends this game as a plus 19, and that's in a 7-point victory. So just pure dominance from Giannis. The Bulls have no one to stop him. Immediately out of the gate, they just immediately showed doubles. As soon as he caught the ball, whether it be at the top of the key, whether it be in the post, he is just immediately seeing bodies and forced to pass the ball, which, is fine if you're a Bulls defense. But the problem is that Giannis is an insane playmaker as well. So he was finding his open teammates. The problems arose when the teammates started not hitting their shots as well. But not to stray too far from Giannis. Giannis just absolutely incredible. 27 points, 16 rebounds, 11 of which I believe were in the first half. Only 3 assists, and that gets to what I mentioned like a few sentences ago. teammates sort of let him down a bit. 2 blocks, aforementioned 5 fouls, 5 turnovers as well. But it was a strong showing from Giannis. Jordan, what did you think about Giannis today?
Great. See, this is okay. I feel like I'm probably going to echo what I've talked about in past pods, or you have to go nearly a year ago when we're kind of, that was a great Giannis game, but it also, I would maybe not say dominant in the fact that, like, I mean, it kind of followed the game where it's like the Bucks, anytime they had a lead, they searched for every way to not have a lead anymore. Whether it was committing these awful turnovers or Giannis kind of jacking up, early shots from 3, and just like, okay, like you're kind of finding your flow and rhythm and stuff like that. A lot of this came down to, honestly, the Bucks looked like a team that hadn't played in a week. And then if you add on the fact that they didn't play any of the starters outside of Jrue Holiday, immediately following Darius Garland to get a game incentive bonus. Like, these guys looked rusty. They looked, especially as the game wore on, and just kind of the intricacies of their game. But back to Giannis. Foul trouble was the only thing really stopping him. And even turnovers, like his passing kind of followed the ways of like Khris and Jrue occasionally, where it's like kind of overthinking, or just, that's misstep in execution, or whatever the case may be. Bulls really, like, I will give them this, like, I know their offense was terrible for 44 minutes out of the game. But their help defense really, like, bothered the Bucks. Like, they could not complete any pocket pass whatsoever. It kind of felt like at a certain point they just kind of knew the little, like, knacks that the Bucks have developed over the years that really, can only be honed over time when you play with these guys for as much as you do. And I think Giannis to come to that for sure. I thought he also was going to fall out on that over the back call, which was a little bit like,
that was an over the back. It was an over the back.
It was over the back. Tony Brothers, I was like, oh, you're Tony Brothers, Reed? And then he calls that call, and I'm just like, thank you, Tony.
I'm surprised Billy Donovan didn't challenge that.
I'm surprised too, because there was a lot of those calls too. Like, you think about it, and you're just like, I think Bud there was one on Giannis, like, in the second quarter. I can't remember what the actual call was, but it was something like, oh, I watched the Bally broadcast, and they insinuated that Bud was going to challenge it. He didn't end up challenging it. I can't remember what it is that's bothering me right now. But, like, that was not, like, up for debate. It was like, yeah, Giannis fouled him. I mean, like, a lot of those, like, off the ball or non-shooting foul calls that you can, like, replay, I'd be like, it's not worth wasting a timeout if you get it right on the off chance that you get it right. Whereas, like, Billy Donovan, yeah, like, that's your last resort. There was like 2 minutes left in the game, if not less, and that comes at a critical time, like, especially for a second-year guy like Patrick Williams, who has the unfortunate assignment of defending Giannis for large stretches of the game and cannot shoot the ball well at all. I thought that was Giannis. I thought what looked to be a hard job closing out the game was going to be made harder by Giannis following up, but Tony Brothers had other ideas.
It was a Tony Brothers game for sure. You could tell that Tony Brothers really wanted to make an impact on this basketball game. Early on, it was DeMar and the Bulls just getting the ticky-tack calls, and then down the stretch, it's like, okay, we're not calling anything. We're just gonna let this ride.
You could have grabbed a hammer and just, like, started, like, chasing DeMar DeRozan and tried to, like, they would have called nothing. There was some like abject, like, oh, DeMar just got whacked, and they're just like, nope.
DeMar, why'd you get in the way of Brook Lopez's hammer? Like, why did you get in the way? If anything, you're lucky I didn't call that an offensive foul, DeMar.
Exactly.
but yeah, just to cap on Giannis, there was a run in the third quarter when the Bulls took a 5-point lead and the tides are sort of turning. Giannis comes back into the game, immediately finds Jrue Holiday for a layup, immediately scores on his own, and the Bucks take the lead back. And that sort of felt like a momentum shifter, though the Bucks did give up the lead again in the fourth quarter. But in that moment. It was a it was a momentum shifter. Just Giannis and his presence in this game was just it was felt, it was palpable what he was doing to the Bulls on the basketball court tonight. So I'm glad we started with him because yeah, if we want to talk about the rest, should we alternate? Where should we go from here? Should we talk Khris and Jrue and get it out of the way?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So Khris Middleton, let's start with 11 points, 4 of 13 shooting, 1 of 7 from 3. He got to the free throw line, made both his free throws, 5 rebounds, respectable, six assists, nice. 7 turnovers, 1 steal, nice. What happened here? What's going on with our good pal Khris Middleton, Jordan?
Slow shooting start.
That's one way to put it.
One way. You kind of thought he would eventually find it. I can't remember who was really guarding him to start the game, because it wasn't Williams. It would have been either DeMar or
it was DeMar.
DeMar.
Yeah.
And to his credit, I know he's not really viewed as a plus defender, but I thought DeMar was he made some solid reads and kind of bothered the Bucks in very small but key ways. And obviously, if you're limiting Khris to 11 points of 13 shots and he's got 7 turnovers to boot, like he to me was like the ultimate bellwether of like, okay, the Bucks are going to get this sorted out, or Khris is not going to figure it out and they're going to lose game 1. That kind of thing. That's, as we're kind of settling in, especially the second half, it's just like, Khris, you're almost there, and it's like it's not there. It's he hit some big shots like as the game wore on, and kind of it's one of those like
did
I thought he hit, maybe it was early. Again, this is a blur because I was like, there's like some like, oh, that's Khris, and then they'll be like, oh, that's also Khris. The Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of Khris Middleton. That's Khris and that's James.
What stands out to me, like, sure, we know what we're going to get with Khris Middleton in terms of shooting. He's either going to be Kyle Kuzma. That's disrespectful to Kyle Kuzma. He's going to be Rashad Vaughn, or he's going to be prime Michael Jordan. And there's like no in between come playoff time. This was a Rashad Vaughn game. Sorry, Rashad, wherever you are.
I mean, I gotta say though that if Rashad, well, he's a great human being, but Rashad Vaughn would be very lucky to have 11 points in a playoff game. That's an NBA playoff game. I know he's an MVP and I believe some European league, but
yeah, he was. Shout out to Rashad, man. But sure, we know what we're going to get in terms of shooting performances. It's the turnovers that really, really bothered me. It was just lazy passes. He had I believe it was at least two turnovers where he tried to do put some English on a baseline pass.
Yeah.
And it just immediately went to the defender. And he kept on trying it. Nah, this is the time where it's going to work. No, it didn't work last time. But you don't know about this time. Didn't work again. He's like, nope. Last 2 times he got me. Okay, it's not going to work anymore. It felt sloppy. His game felt sloppy because there was a couple pocket passes that he missed. There was just a couple of weird shot attempts that he took as well. But just the turnovers are what killed me from his performance.
I thought of a clutch play that he had.
Okay.
I specify play because it was not a shot. The outlet pass to Zach Lavine that he weirdly kind of I don't know what he was trying to do, but he kind of tried to do a little showboat kind of layup, and Khris is like, yeah, I'm gonna try to draw a charge because you don't know what you're doing right now, and that was probably the biggest energizing,
which was also a block, by the way. That was definitely a block. Khris was sliding.
Oh yeah, it was not clean, but I mean,
Tony Brothers
can get against Tony Brothers.
But no, you're right. It was a good play. It was a good play attempt, and it ended up working. For the Bucks. But aside from that, it just felt like he didn't have the pace of the game down. It felt like he was trying to go multiple speeds at a time. He wasn't getting in rhythm and finding his shots. Like I mentioned, the sloppy play. We know what this, I'm not gonna, don't come at me and say, oh, Khris Middleton isn't good enough. We know he can be good enough. We know that he's going to rebound from this. It's not like he's gonna play like this all series or anything. He might come back next game and be in the prime MJ cycle. Who knows? Likely. But Khris has struggled against the Bulls this season. He has not shot well against the Bulls this season, but he just needs to keep taking the shots. And that's what I think he needs to do. He put up 13 shots today. That's fine. I just don't want him to become too passive. I want him to stay aggressive. That's what's most important to me.
Yeah, agreed. I think, especially when, as you said, those pocket passes, the kind of things that, like, on a good night, it's like, okay, Khris is reading the game well. When he doesn't have it going well, it's like, okay, it looks lazy, or you're just kind of like, you're turning it on when you don't have to turn it on, or it's not coming to you as quickly as you thought it would. Like, that's where it's like he synthesized all of kind of the frustrations and the struggles that the Bucks had in his own game, if that makes sense. And I think, it's going to look better when he shoots the ball well, but it's more of the general kind of, the way you're leading the offense, or if there's a hit, you get a big stop and someone's running down the other end of the floor and you just don't have the right pass, or you're putting too much English on the ball, like you mentioned earlier. Like, it just comes down to those little things that, if you're not playing the game for 9 days or however long it was, like, it can you have to kind of find it again. And luckily the Bucks avoided losing that game one bullet or biting that game one bullet again. But like, it was just kind of like, it just felt like everything that you can describe of like what the Bucks struggled in was kind of just epitomized by Khris Middleton.
Yeah, you mentioned the rest. You mentioned game one. It's actually a miracle that the Bucks won this game, considering they were on a rest. They had a lot of rest. It was a game one. It was Tony Brothers. I don't know how they ended up winning this game. It was like the holy trinity of things working against Milwaukee. Probably the wrong day to say that, but
the only thing that would have made it like even more like what is like if the game started at noon. And this is gonna be weird.
That might have been one too many. That might have turned into the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Then see it. I got my references. Yeah. Moving on. Jrue Holiday also struggled from the field. He managed to turn it around, score a bunch in the fourth quarter. Mr. Fourth Quarter, as I've dubbed him. But interesting performance. Ends with 15 points on 16 shots, only 1 of 4 from deep. Khris, like him and Khris made the same amount of threes. And Giannis all made 1 3. Who was the only player to make more than 1 3? Bobby and Wes. Yeah, Bobby and Wes. Interesting. But Jrue Holiday, I did not feel like it was a super, super impactful game from Jrue Holiday on either end.
I would agree with you offensively. I mean, again, he's an NBA champion. He's an Olympic gold medalist. But we know how some of the playoff games were last year, where it's like Drew's 5 for 23, but the 3 of those 5 came at like fourth quarter or overtime, like that game 7 against the Nets or whatever the stat was. Again, I think he only had 6 points in the first 3 quarters. Kind of, he wasn't being as decisive with the ball, and again, I think Chris's turnovers kind of overshadowed like Drew's kind of misreads and making kind of like, oh, you really want to take a 3 10 feet out from the arc when you're not really feeling it, kind of like it just didn't. He kind of made those same like, okay, like,
are you really doing this right now?
Yeah, that kind of thing. But at the other end, I mean, he's guarding Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan heavily throughout the game, and it's not like he's like locking him down because DeMar DeRozan is going to get shots off anyway, but he was not making a lot of them. And I think as time wore on, you saw the Bucks start to pick up, off of inbounds passes. Obviously, that starts with Javon Carter because that's in his DNA, to quote Bucks DNA. But Jrue Holiday started kind of like, that's where I feel like those little things that kind of occur late in the game, we are it's like, oh yeah, you're picking them up. But like, it did feel like the Bulls, like, even though they were not They were not good offensively. They were not good. I have to repeat this endlessly. They were not good offensively at all. But I felt like the Bucks, as that fourth quarter wore on, that they really kind of constricted them and kind of felt or made them rush into offense late in the shot clock that that they didn't want to do. And I thought Jrue took that baton and really carried it as he eventually found his offense and started hitting shots and started kind of getting the line and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say probably like a B- game, but defense would probably be a higher grade.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the fourth quarter, by the way, Jrue was 3 of 6, 1 of 2, made his 3 in the fourth quarter.
Big
9
3.
points. Just great performance from Jrue in the fourth. Closed it out as usual. Even with Giannis sort of coming in and out of foul trouble, Jrue was the one who was picking up the load, initiating a lot of the offense, finishing at times too. I don't know what's happened to him this season, but he is. Did Khris transfer his like powers to Jrue Holiday this year? It kind of feels like he did, didn't he?
A little bit. It's certainly gone on. I mean, you could think of the Heat game winner over Gabe Vincent, or just, I don't know what it is. He kind of turns it on. Like you can kind of be like a night like tonight is like perfect example of like, yeah, you can not really find it the first 3 quarters, or you're spending so much time and energy defensively that your offense is going to suffer because of that. And Jrue just kind of finds a way. Like that's what makes him so in a very smaller version like Giannis, when Giannis doesn't have it going on a certain night, which is again a rare night, but like Jrue just kind of finds his groove in a very Jrue way. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Not a lot of players can do that, but like that's when you become a player as great as him, or even Khris when he's having those struggles, that can kind of get washed away. And it's like, yeah, you found it at the right time. It just, the journey there wasn't as great as you hoped it would be.
Yeah, it's the ends justify the means in this situation,
Exactly.
would you say? But no, I agree. It was just he finds a way to get himself going. And I think that comes with a lot of trust in this system. And year 2 in the system has really benefited from Jrue Holiday, and which is why you sort of see him being able to handle the ball more in these situations, get his shots in these situations, because he has more trust with the team. The team has more trust in him because they've had a whole playoff run with him. They've had a whole year with him. That's why I feel better about Grayson next year, by the way. But yeah. I think that's a good way to talk about the role players in this game for Milwaukee. And we have to start off with the big man himself, Brook Lopez, because my goodness, dominant performance, I should say. Ends with 18 points, 7 of 14 shooting, only went 1 of 5 from distance, 5 rebounds, but just he felt powerful in this game, wouldn't you say?
Yes. It was very fitting that the game started with Brook just feasting on all the types of baskets that he had been feasting on against the Bulls throughout the season, which was the last like 2 months. And it was fitting that he closed it out and the way he did. I know he only had 2 blocks, but the weight of those blocks felt like 8. That one on Zach Lavine.
He had a lot of stops at the rim too that weren't counted as blocks.
Yeah,
which is just the story of Brook Lopez's defense.
Exactly, the kind of Brook like just altering shots and just like how can you get the angle that you're recovering from and all that stuff. Like he would just like there were some parts where it was like, okay, Vooch is kind of like getting at least, it wasn't just getting shots off, but he was kind of playing with Brook's kind of rhythm defensively, especially. And it was like, oh, we haven't seen that a lot with Brook and Vooch before. And it was like, oh, it's not a big problem. Brook, like, I thought this kind of maybe dovetails into one of my bigger questions about it, but a lot of the Bucks' problems tonight and the passes that kind of bothered me is that it would all be solved by the fact that you have 7-foot Giannis Antetokounmpo and you have 7'1" or 7'2" Brook Lopez, who Vooch is a big guy. Tristan Thompson's he's a big, but he's not like physically imposing.
Okay, but before you continue, can we talk about you weren't watching the TNT broadcast,
No,
but every time Tristan Thompson was on the floor, they kept saying that the Bulls are going small. That's not going small.
That's not going small.
If Tristan Thompson is on the floor, that's not a small lineup because what is he going to do in a small lineup? Space? What, like, there's video of him bricking hook shot after hook shot, and you think this guy's like a floor spacing threat? You think this guy's a linchpin to a small lineup? Come on, it's Tristan Thompson. It is the year 2022. What are we doing here? Sorry, continue.
I was waiting for a Rohan outburst, and I had a feeling Tristan Thompson would be on it. It's funny that you mentioned that about like spacing the floor, because Marcus kind of had a subtle dig about Tristan Thompson. He's like, oh, he like floated up one of his shots and didn't go in. And Marcus is like, oh, that shot looks a lot different than we're used to when he's warming up in the game. And it's like, ooh, that's that. I felt that one, Marcus. But yeah, like that. I don't know what that was. I don't even know who the announcing crew was for TNT tonight. So
it was Ian Eagle, and I forget the other one.
Was it Stan?
No, it wasn't.
Kumpo?
Kumpo.
No, I to my point though, of like, it just felt like a lot of the Bucks problems would have just been solved with like, let's just run lobs, just throw it up in the rim and have. I mean, this is me simplifying the NBA offense. This is why I'm not an NBA head coach, but it just was like, you have Giannis, you have Brooke, who are just getting what they want at or near the rim, and it just kind of like, use your size, use your athleticism and vertical explosion, obviously more so in Giannis's case. And it was just like, I thought like the Bulls really clamped down on the kind of dunker spot off ball movement that the Bucks really have excelled at in the last couple of years. Maybe not subtle plot line. Josh Longstaff, a former Bucks assistant coach, kind of knows what Bud wants to do and stuff like that. Like, that's not an insignificant note in a series like this. But that kind of neutralized Brooke, and it forced him to play out in the corner, played more 3-point Brooke, which, it helps with spacing and stuff like that. But also, I mean, we've seen it before. I don't think that's always the best use of Brooke in some cases, depending on the lineup versus, you're throwing out there. And it just kind of, it doesn't, it solves the structure element, but it doesn't necessarily elevate the people that are putting the structure together, if that analogy makes sense. So when Brooke kind of comes in at a very opportune time and when the Bucks need it most, he's just, again, feisty on the rim, throwing out these junk shots, and it's hitting down for an and one, and Pfizer looks like it's going crazy. And it's like, he just solves a lot of problems that the Bucks had throughout the year, obviously, and just you start to see what they miss. And then now that he's playing as good as he has been and just playing like vintage Brooke, like a night like tonight, it's not like it's that crazy, because this is he's been here for 4 years and we've seen greater performances and stuff like that. But like the moment of the weight of what the Bucks are going through for a lot of the second half, it was just like, oh, this is what Brooke solves. This is what Brooke brings. And it just fits like a snug glove.
I thought it was fitting that one of the game icing shots was a Brooke Lopez and one to really increase the lead at the end. And like you mentioned, they opened the scoring with him. To your point on lobs, I agree with that. I think that would help a lot, just vertical spacing, especially against a guy like Vooch and Tristan Thompson, who's not a big apparently. But like who's throwing the passes? Like, I don't want Chris Middleton to throw those passes.
Give it to Bobby. Or no, I'm joking. But yeah,
Bobby and Brooke lobs. That would just Adam would never recover.
Yeah, but it would. Adam also, side note, but Adam was like, I don't know if the Bucks can win a rock fight during this playoff run. Well, we got it. We got it out of the way.
First game.
They can still do it.
They can definitely still do it. It helps that the Bulls shot themselves in the foot repeatedly and then cut off their own foot and then just use their other foot and like tied it behind their back and then managed
the plot of Saw.
Yes.
That was
yes. You want to know a fun story? It's not a fun story at all. This is completely unrelated. There was this one, like, so there were these guys, like they were out, they were like drunk and stuff. And they were having like a manly competition to see who could tolerate the most pain. One guy used a chainsaw, cut off his own foot. And it was like, oh yeah, beat that. Another guy chopped his own head off.
I'm just gonna let that sit for a minute. So I guess that would be a weird way to describe game 1 of Bucks Bulls.
It's a perfect analogy.
It felt like, especially, I know we're kind of getting off on tangents, but like it was so apparent, like the fourth quarter where I think Giannis was like officially in foul trouble, and it's like, who wants to win this game? Does anybody want to? Does Alex Caruso, whose headband fits in a very, it looks really weird.
I think he just has an odd head.
He has a very odd head, but I think it's also, it's a black headband, so it kind of just like, and he's very just like a white epidermis. It looks really weird. Anyway, there was like, okay, DeMar DeRozan, you're putting up DeMar DeRozan shots, it's not going down. Zach Lavine, you're doing whatever it is you're doing. Vucevic, the moment that he bricked that layup late, and I was like, that's why. Twice. Yes, good point. You needed as many bricks at the rim as you give up first round picks as the Bulls did to get them from the Magic. That's why you get Nikola Vucevic right there. It was just like, I just felt like at a certain point I was like, does anybody want to win this game? And again, we're back to Bucks playoff basketball.
We really are. I think in that analogy, the Bucks are the guy who chopped off the foot. The Bulls chopped their own head off. See, it ties in. It's not just
seeing red. That's the Bulls slogan. That obviously a lot of bloodshed right there in that scenario.
People are gonna love that one. Let's talk about the Bulls. We've talked a lot about how they sort of they beat. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I make one mention
of course,
player Bobby Portis?
Yes,
Bobby. I know not a very like kind of glamorous stat line, even in the game that individual stat lines don't look all that great, but 10 points, 12 rebounds, 3 offensive rebounds. Didn't have the greatest shooting at 3 of 8, but 2 of 5 from 3, and the Bucks needed every one of those threes. Obviously, when they go 10 for 38. But you mentioned that run late in the third, and Giannis is, he lays the foundation down for kind of, resuscitating that game and not letting it slip away further from the Bucks' hands. But I just thought Bobby kind of read the game really well. Like he didn't finish all that well, but like it's the energy on the boards. He made really subtle, like great defensive reads when they're switching and kind of like got his hands into passing lanes. And it's stuff that you wouldn't necessarily associate with Bobby Portis in a lot of ways, but like it's stuff like that kind of, it's going to be an open case about like how well does Bobby play and how much can the Bucks lean on him this playoff run, which I know Adam has probably different thoughts than any, of you, Ty, and I about it at this point. But like that made it really encouraging for me to see him like DeMar DeRozan. He switches on a guy like DeMar DeRozan and kind of really knew what to do and kind of knew his little like kind of lull you to sleep and his rhythms and stuff like that. That frankly, last year when he's going up against Chris Paul, again, one of the greatest point guards and basketball players to ever play in the NBA, he just looked like he was, didn't have a clue. And this year it's like you're going up against a guy who's a professional scorer like DeMar DeRozan and knows how to, work his way around opposing bigs like that who are slow-footed. and he really held his own and just kind of, I don't know. I was really impressed by his game. And again, it's not going to wow you, but the Bucks were -1. Okay, it doesn't really help my case in that point, but
it's around even. He was also a part of that third quarter collapse, like early in the quarter.
Yes.
So that -1 is actually pretty strong.
Yeah, that's a good point there too. But yeah, I felt like he's the only one that, only reserve that was in double figures, obviously. And the Bucks, again, they needed every point that they could get from a guy like Bobby, and obviously threes too that he hit. But just thought a very strong game for him in ways that we don't really talk about with Bobby.
Yeah, his reads are fantastic. He had 2 assists, but they were 2 beauties of an assist. One back cut, Jrue Holiday feeds him for a one-handed dunk, and I believe another one was a kick out to a 3, I believe, off of a face.
That might have been to Brooke, or it might have been to Wes.
One of the two.
Yeah.
But it was one of those situations where it's like, oh, Bobby's going to take the shot here. And it's like, no, he's actually passing out to a wide open 3. So your point stands about it. Like, he just read the game so well. I'm glad you brought him up. I guess we're going to stay with the Bucks here. Wes Matthews, strong performance. I know Adam in our chat said he wanted him to play more in this game. He logs, 27 minutes, of just shade under 27 minutes. 2 or 3 from the field, which is from deep. It's Wes Matthews. 5 rebounds, 1 assist. I thought he was fine. He got the primary DeMar DeRozan assignment early on. He got into like a bit of foul trouble.
Yes.
What did he get? He only had 2 fouls, but those were both early. So they kind of shifted away from that a little bit. But I thought he did a pretty good job holding up. He did not make any mistakes really on either end of the floor. So I thought it was a strong performance from Wes Matthews.
Yeah. The ways that you kind of recognize Wes is if he's hitting shots, not fouling, which he dabbled in. And obviously it was more of like the shooting fouls too. Like he wasn't necessarily in foul trouble, but DeMar was going in the line for both of those fouls.
Yes. Yeah.
And outside of that, like again, very solid performance, kind of what you'd expect and hope for, but certainly unsung, and that kind of describes Wes to a T.
Yeah, it was perfect. And I guess Grayson Allen, sort of a performance. He just wasn't involved as much offensively, and he was part of the unit in the third quarter where they were just bleeding points. That's one thing. It was him and Bobby Portis on the court at the same time, where he's sort of like, is this really a tenable lineup here? And it was not. It was not tenable. They were like, Giannis, please save us. Giannis saved, and it works out. That's what you can do when you have the best player in the world. But the Chicago Bulls, I don't even know where to start. Nikola Vucevic took 27 shots today. 27 shots. That's ridiculous. Why, Jordan, can you explain to me why the entire team was running through Vucevic?
They were certainly working that. I mean, as we talked about on the preview pod, the Bulls are not a strong 3-point shooting team in terms of volume. Nikola Vucevic is kind of the one that's pushing that higher than where it would be normally. And how many threes did he shoot?
10.
He had 10. He hit a big one. I think that gave the Bulls a lead. One of his 2. Just a lot of Vucevic. Vucevic.
It was a lot. And he was the featured offensive player. It's not a situation.
He had more shots than DeMar.
Yes, exactly.
Surprising.
Because it's not like they were just like, he wasn't finding shots in the rhythm of the game. They were setting him up to be the guy that takes shots. And I'm like, what exactly are we doing here if we're the Chicago Bulls? Like, I get you want to exploit like the 3-point prowess in quotes of Nikola Vucevic with just running pick and pops so you can stretch out Brook Lopez. Sure, I get that. I understand that. That was one of my keys for the Bulls if they wanted to have a chance to win this series. But just why is he posting up every 5 possessions?
That was just any kind of like, I know like you kind of get, if you're a Bulls fan, you're kind of looking at small victories. This game was closer than anybody imagined, especially how it started. And it just felt like, I don't know. It just felt also the two shot disparity between DeMar DeRozan and Vucevic could be explained by him missing those two final shots at the rim, which is just kind of fitting.
Perfect. It's poetic justice.
Poetic justice. But it's just like, yeah, it's a big part of your game plan. But as we talked about in the preview pod, like he's as good as he's looked against the Bucks in that, bubble first round series. He's not equipped to shoot 10 times from three or, largely be outside or kind of like outside inside kind of game. That's not Vucevic. That's how
this man traveled on a jumper because Javon Carter scared him. And this is the guy taking the most shots on your team.
It was just that was a weird moment. And he had a couple moving screens. Like, I know that's when it was like getting really tight of like the game, but like how they're calling it. And it was just like, he seems like a hard player to read because I literally don't know anything about Nikola Vucevic outside of the fact that he plays basketball and has played basketball for a long time. But he just seems like a weird guy a hard guy to read. And he didn't really seem fired up or like pissed off and any other, like if it was going well or bad or whatever the case may be. And it was just like, what is going on? Like
he is the Tim Duncan of our era.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Again, that's why you give up 2 first-round picks for Nikola Vucevic
and Wendell Carter Jr.
and Wendell Carter and one other rookie or young player that they had. I
forgot already.
Yeah,
I forgot.
Yeah, just bizarre, kind of very bizarre.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to happen. It might happen again.
I think it is.
Is this really their gameplay?
Well, because they know that the Bucks are willing to live with it, and they think that Vucevic is going to have a better shooting net, which, hey, very well could happen.
You're asking Vucevic to be the best player on the court on when you're playing a team that has Giannis.
Yeah. Yes, you are. I don't know.
Go off, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Have fun. Good luck to you. DeMar DeRozan, 6 of 25 from the field. That's a yikes. I know our friend Jason Pat, who did a preview pod with Ty, was tweeting that this was by far DeMar's worst game of the season. And it's just a bad time to show. Gets back to our analogy, Bulls cut their head off. Their own heads off.
Despite their face.
Yeah. I thought early on, it was going to be a classic DeMar grift game, but he only went to the free throw line 6 times, which feels wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that gets back to Tony Brothers in the sense that they weren't really, I shouldn't call it just Tony Brothers, but just the flow of the game in the sense that they weren't biting on the grifts as much in the second half. Like if you were actively foul hunting, sure, we'll give it to you in the first quarter, second quarter. Once the game tightens up, we're not going to give it to you. And that's when DeMar's game sort of floundered. And I hate bagging on DeMar. I like DeMar. I think he's a great player. But this is the playoff story with DeMar DeRozan every single year.
Yes. Yeah, even I think we talked about it on our preview pod, not to keep referring to that, but like it was by far his worst shooting performance of the season. His worst of the regular season was 4 for 13, so 30.8% from the field. He was 24%. Yeah, 24% even. Again, you mentioned it. Didn't really go to the free throw line, even though it kind of felt like it was like, okay, DeMar's kind of, he's I was going to make a chainsaw analogy again, but he's hacking and trying to make his way to the free throw line any way he can, and they shut it down. And I don't think that doesn't only explain why he was missing, because he just was missing. He just was ice cold. What was his second half efficiency? I think he was like 1 for 15.
2 for 13.
2 for 13, which is like he was missing DeMar DeRozan shots. And again, like I hate to kind of like fall back on these like, well, it's the playoffs and DeMar DeRozan always kind of like struggles. But when you see a game like tonight and he just doesn't have it, and it's like, I've seen this story before and it looks like this. And it's like, it sucks. It sucks. And like, I'm not a Bulls fan, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the people that are listening to me talk about this right now, they're like, why would we feel bad for DeMar DeRozan?
I feel bad for DeMar, man.
But when you see a guy like, he's so good at what he does, and it just can, it's like watching Eric Bledsoe. It's like, Eric Bledsoe's a good basketball player.
I think you're still talking to the wrong audience.
Oh, I know. But I'm just saying, like, it is just very like, at a certain point, you're just like, oh, he cannot hit anything. He can't even hit rim. There was some shots just like, he's just
air
like,
balls.
Yeah, he was missing it completely. And yeah, I that's one where I could say like, okay, Vucevic might have a better shooting night. He surely might not shoot as much as he did. DeMar's gonna shoot as much as he did tonight, and I wouldn't be surprised if he has another game like that. That's kind of where I'm at with the series.
And the thing is, even if he does have a good shooting game, it's not going to matter, because if he has a good shooting game, he's going to be taking more shots. The Bucks are fine with that. The Bucks are fine with taking contested mid-rangers all night long. They'll send DeMar DeRozan a thank you note in the mail.
That was like part of where, it's super tense. My heart rate's up. I can feel it like, just getting that, like, you're kind of grumbling under your breath of like, why aren't they winning? Like, and then I'm just like, the Bulls going the other end of the floor, and it's, they think they're going to win going 2 by 2 by 2. And if they kick it out to the corner, it's Patrick Williams shooting a 3, or it's Derek Jones shooting a 3.
Oh my God, Derek Jones cannot, if he should, like, the coaching staff, he probably doesn't want to shoot another basketball again in his life.
Brooke had a rougher 3-point shooting look from that corner, from a corner, like where it hit like off the backboard, like the side of the backboard, and you're like, ooh. But like, you're kind of, when you shoot as many shots as Brooke does from 3, you kind of live with it. But it's those guys that like, all they do is corner threes, and you don't hit the broadside of a bar, and it's like, oh.
You don't hit anything.
You don't hit anything. It's like, Derek, he's flight mode. Oh, that ball took a lot of flight or whatever. I don't know what his nickname is. I
think you're right.
Airplane mode. That's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
Damn it.
It was, I can't think of it one right off the spot. But one player who I thought had the strongest performance from the Bulls was probably Alex Caruso. He was a defensive menace. And a lot of Chris Middleton's struggles can probably be attributed to Alex Caruso and Chris Middleton. So I think
Aggie crime.
I thought Caruso had a great performance. He was just in every passing lane. He was getting deflections. He was just bothering guys on defense. He was drawing offensive fouls. He had a great performance. He even hit a 3. Good for him.
Yes, he did.
The other guy on the Bulls, I guess, is really worth mentioning is probably Zach Lavine. We should talk about Zach Lavine.
Yes,
we talked about him up top a bit, but just he looks hampered. That knee injury just sucks so much for him, and you can tell. 6 of 19 from the field, just didn't have it. He was forcing up shots. A lot of his threes were sort of at the end in desperation time, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But it just felt like a game where he couldn't find any semblance of rhythm. The Bucks did a really good job of holding him out of transition. You mentioned that Chris Middleton charge earlier. They did a good job of walling him off, barriering him off in fast break situations. So I don't know where Zach really goes from here either. I guess he can shoot better, but he's not going to get into a rhythm.
Certainly not against either Wes or Jrue. Too.
It's Jrue the primary assignment on it. So you're not going to get a ton on it.
No. He had that again. It wasn't just Giannis hampered by foul trouble. He picked up his 3rd foul late in the first half, and it was just really stupid. Like, he pushed Giannis like as they're kind of like not really in position, but they're close to the rim, and just in case. And it was just like, why? Especially when you watch how the game kind of unfolded, and you're kind of going down those margins, and something stupid like that really kind of came back and hurt the Bulls, and just kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't be. I don't know like how to like really describe his performance other than just kind of like, ugh. And to your point, like he is clearly hampered by his knee injury. Missed the last Bucks game against the Bulls, like that,
Yep.
like last week too. Like he just doesn't look like himself. But I also just thought like he didn't really. And for as much as like, oh, he had some big threes towards the end of the game, as you mentioned, and stuff like that. It was just like, what is that going to look like when, or if DeMar turns it on, or if Vooch has a better shooting night and doesn't shoot the ball as much as he does, like. The Bulls' big three got a lot of opportunities and looks and had plenty of opportunity to steal away this game from the Bucks. And again, we kind of keyed in on Zach Lavine going into this series about like he's never played a playoff game before. What does he look like in a playoff setting? And kind of what I expected. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not that much of a surprise. Yeah, just kind of very first playoff like game for a guy that is a good player but not a great player.
For sure. We're starting to get some post game quotes as well. We've got one from DeMar. No way in hell I shoot 6 for 25 again. We'll see. We'll see about that one, DeMar. Thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put. I don't know.
I don't want to put that energy out in the world.
It would be interesting going back into his playoff like resume and his game logs and see if like I remember a lot of those Raptors games and he shot nearly as bad as he probably did tonight, if not worse.
It's not great. It's not. I feel so bad. Maybe I think we're just too soft, Jordan. I think we have two big hearts to really
Yes.
to be mean to the Bulls. So we feel bad.
What do you? Okay, so I'll turn it on you because
Okay.
I feel like you're hosting and I'm giving my opinion. I want to turn on you. How do the Bulls? What do they need to do to at least even up this series in game 2? And more importantly, do they have an offense that can beat the Bucks?
See, I was going to ask you that. So I actually have a semblance of what I want to say here. The quick answer is no, they don't really. This is an offense where if the Bulls really have their offense going, it's like what I mentioned earlier. You're just hitting contested mid-rangers, and the Bucks are like, okay, cool, live with that. Because the Bucks, they're going to live with Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan taking contested mid-rangers, and they're going to live with Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, and I don't know, Derek Jones Jr. taking corner threes. They're going to live with that. That's what they're going to be designed to give up. And if you're the Chicago Bulls, you're entirely reliant on actually making those things happen, which doesn't seem very likely to really happen at all, based on what we've seen all season, and especially based on what we saw game 1. Because the crux of this Bulls team is DeMar and Zach just absolutely eating. If they can't eat, they're finished. Do you think Vooch is going to put up 24 points again? He might, but he might need 37 shots to get there. You're going to live with that if you're Milwaukee. I don't really see a path to the Bulls having a sustainable offense. The only reason the Bulls were in this game is because Milwaukee just they buxed. They went full Bucks. So that's okay. That's another path to success. Bucks going full Bucks.
Yes, because I mean, you see the Bucks go 10 for 38 from 3, and that's a deja vu experience. It wouldn't be a Bucks playoff game if they weren't regressing to the mean from 3. You know what I mean? Like even a guy like Pat Connaughton, who really found his way during last year's playoff run, he couldn't really hit anything. Grayson Allen
1 for 6 from
1 for 6. Yeah, he just, I don't know if he had a lot of good looks too. It wasn't like he was rushing things or closeouts. Just like there was a lot of wide open shots, and again, that kind of happens with playoff performances as we are very accustomed to. But it just feels like it hits the Bucks in a very larger sense. But when you have a Buck, you can at least like rely on Khris or Jrue turning on the fourth, or Giannis when he's not in foul trouble, getting to the line and or hitting some tough fadeaway shots or whatever the case may be. To your point, when you don't have DeMar DeRozan or Zach Lavine first of all, not leading the team in shots and looks and stuff like that. Like you're already kind of operating with one hand behind your back. But also like their starting lineup, like I agree with you. I thought Caruso, he had a good game, but it was also like, yeah, you look around and it's like, well, who else had a good game? That kind of thing, if that makes sense. They're just asking a lot of like him and Patrick Williams to be the defensive guys because like, again, when their offense is just not their offense, first of all, might not be playoff oriented because if, you know, their best players aren't playing as well as they had played during the regular season, you're kind of up crap creek to put it in a family friendly terms. But like, I just think like a guy like Kobe White, like he kind of found his way in when the Bulls were turning the game in the third quarter. And I'm not saying Kobe White is the Bulls' godsend this series.
He also got blocked by Grayson Allen.
He got blocked by Grayson Allen, which is definitely the best play that Grayson had all the game. But like, he at least like provides like some instant offense that they just desperately need. They need a little bit of like, he just is a different dimension in the fact that he's just like crazy lightning fast and just kind of run the floor really well and can kind of drive and he's not afraid to kind of get where, you know, it's very shrouded by 7-foot figures who are defending the rim and stuff like that. Like he kind of feels like he knows what he's doing, at least offensively. And it's just like, I don't know. I think that they're going to play better and shoot the ball better. You can't shoot worse. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if like Billy Donovan kind of, if it's like game 3 and they're down 3-0 or the series goes back to Chicago and they're down 2-0, does he look at like a starting lineup change? Because like it doesn't look pretty. And that's the least I could say about it.
It definitely does not look pretty. Flipping the table, turning the tables. That's the expression. For Milwaukee, game 2. What do we really want to see here? Personally, I want to see more Khris Middleton. I want to see him get involved right away so we can find a rhythm right away. That's what I want to see. I think that's the biggest key really for Milwaukee. Like Pat Connaughton's probably not going to shoot 1 of 6 from 3 again. You're not going to shoot 10 of 38 as a team again. Knock on wood. Maybe
not this series, but maybe later in the playoffs. I don't know.
It'll happen at some point.
It will happen again.
It's guaranteed.
We know it will.
But I need to see Khris get it going early for me. What about you?
Yeah, agree. Aggressive Khris Middleton. That will just make things breathe easier. And just kind of aggressive in the sense of like he knows what the Bucks need at the times that they need it. That kind of, if that makes sense. I mean, the fact that I think to add to that, clean it up, 21 turnovers to 19 assists. That is not good. Not good at all. And again, a lot of it does come down to the Bulls, at least, like, you know, whether it's just having Josh Longstaff on their coaching staff or just playing the Bucks as much as they have recently, they know what the Bucks want to do. And knowing those little kind of things that you don't know unless if you have someone that was on staff. Again, I'm just gonna like key in on that because it does kind of feel like a big thing after watching a game like this. But a lot of it was just it wasn't just like the pocket pass and stuff like that. It was like they're running transition and there's 2 guys like filling down the middle of the lane, and it was just like no one knows to get the ball to, and it's going out of bounds, or you're just kind of misfiring. Like the overall passes outside of the first quarter, just kind of like it wasn't hitting shooting pockets. It wasn't really hitting people that you want to have the ball or anything like that. Like that's where I think, like, you know, the Bulls can hang their hat on mucking up that way. They may not have the horses or the offense to kind of really test the Bucks in a lot of ways. But again, to your point, like the Bucks gave the Bulls more than they could chew, and they still lost by 7 in a game that the Bucks played very terribly for
Very
three
bad.
quarters. Yes.
Yeah. I think to simplify this a lot, do the first quarter thing twice this time. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
We're not asking.
I'm not asking for a lot here.
Yeah. We're not asking for a perfect game. This isn't, Clayton Kershaw and it's the 7th inning or the 8th inning we're going to pull him. I mean, even then, like, that's good. 7 out of 9 innings, you got perfect. That's good. That's more than 2/3.
Yeah.
We're asking for 2 good quarters, and that's
Shout out
probably
to
going to win you a
Cruising
game.
for a Bruising.
Exactly. That's probably going to win you the game if you win 2 quarters pretty handily.
Let's say first, let's say third. Just do that, you're golden.
Yeah, third quarter, especially the third quarter. We don't need to see.
Okay, maybe first and second quarter.
We don't need to see another third quarter of like, oh, the Bulls fans are really loud now. They're hitting threes. It's like, oh, this feels awful.
Yeah, what'd you think of the Bulls fans?
I'm not surprised. Again, this is going to come to the territory when the cities are 95 miles away from each other,
something like that.
Like, I don't know. Like, I kind of go back and forth because you just want to see Bucks fans and stuff like that, but like, it forces you to be on your feet and be on your game. And when the Bucks need, this, there's no science to this. This is just like your home court advantage and all that stuff. Like, you kind of need that. And whether it's Bulls fans counting down Giannis and misremembering that, oh yeah, they counted him down last year and look what that happened, or look what happened to that. I don't know. Like, I think I would rather see Bucks fans and having the time of their lives and doing stuff like that. But I do think like I'm just not surprised at like what it looks like and what it more so sounds like.
Yeah. All the Bucks fans were in the Deer District All Access with their NFT.
That's true.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well for them, did it?
No, not that it looked like.
Nope. Good job, Bucks. Way to solve all the problems with NFTs. Great job. Hats off all around. I'm gonna stop talking. Is there anything else we need to hit about this game, about this series going forward? We've got our chainsaw movie references, we've got our story references, we've got actual basketball analysis. I don't know what else you could ask for.
It's gonna be an interesting couple days. The Bucks have a lot to clean up. Yeah, they won the game. But yeah, we touched on a lot of it, and just like it was a bigger test than anyone could have imagined, and they passed it. But it was, you got a 70 on the test, and you're coming back after school and talking to the teacher like, "Can I take a retest?" that kind of test.
Is this the closest game of the series, do you think?
That was actually another question that I forgot that I wanted to ask, and you asked it. I see this game was close in the fact that, again, I was openly wondering, does anybody want to win this game? So there might be closer games in that they're going to be a little bit more competitive. Like, people are hitting shots. Like, that's where we went through this last year, and it's like that game 3 against the Nets that mentally broke you at one point, or like,
yep.
I was prepping to say this on the pod, but I don't know if I actually mentioned this on the pod, but like, we talk about game 6 and Giannis scoring 50, and it's like that is our moment as Bucks fans for waiting 50 years to win a title. They also committed 18 turnovers, and the game was really bad. It was not a great game.
No one could score in that game for the first like 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, very interesting parallels, because the Bucks went up crazy big and they started losing in the second quarter. It's like they're gonna squander their this game and all this stuff. And it was kind of like that. There's a lot more free throws than the Bucks, more so Giannis. But it was kind of like that parallel of like, you felt like it was in the bag early, and no, the bag was a bigger bag, or like it was like a present that just kind of like rimmed out and then went on with the bag. I have to stop using analogies. It's too late to use analogies. But again, I do think we kind of like to my larger point of this is like we kind of like hold playoff basketball as like this is the best it will be. There, people are hitting shots and like the gravity of the situation is going to look. We kind of hold it up to this like picture of like it's amazing, it's great, it's just like this is how basketball should be played all the time. And it's like you realize both teams had a combined 32 turnovers. 21 of which were the Bucks. Like it's not like this great game. It's like this is how basketball should be played. It's like, yeah, that looks like crap sometimes. Like I don't want to watch this all the time. Basketball is just basketball. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what my point is with that, but it's just like I got thrust into that memory of like, oh yeah, playoff basketball can look like this sometimes. It doesn't look pretty.
It can be the ugliest thing, but what matters is the victory. And the Bucks came out victorious in this game. I think that's a great way to wrap this up, unless you have anything else.
No, I think that's a great way to wrap it up too.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode here on the Eurostep Podcast Network. If you did enjoy the show, make sure you leave a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. Subscribe on said podcast platform of choice. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe to the Substack, gspn.substack.com. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. We're going to be bringing you content, like I said up top, post-game pod after every single game. We're going to have some pods interspersed in there, some writing interspersed in there. GSPN has you covered for the stretch run. Also, I should have mentioned this up top. I didn't. Jordan, we have merch.
We have merch.
We have merch. gspnstore.com. Make sure you check that out. There's a promo going on. Jordan, what's the promo code?
Playoffs 22. Why playoffs 22? Well, it's the year 22 or 22. Why did I say it like that? Again, it's very late for me. I've been up for a while. Playoffs 2022. That's okay. This promo code is not going well. Promo code playoffs 22. That is our promo code. Do not listen to the last 30 seconds of me attempting to say this promo code.
Yeah, that'll give you 22% off. It'll be great if you support us. We got some great designs for all of the podcasts on there, including Cruising for a Bruising. Make sure you go subscribe, by the way. It's a separate feed. But yeah, make sure you check that out. Stay tuned, Pod Random, and we will talk to you next time.